call this meeting to order. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, public comment will occur during the public comment portion of the meeting and will be done via raising your hand remotely or in person. During public comment, once acknowledged, please state your name and ward so that it can be included in the minutes, and please limit your time to 3 minutes. Public comment is governed by policy BEDH. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not at this time.
Okay. Is there anyone in the room who would like to make public comment? Okay. Is there anyone online who would like to make a public comment?
No one's raising their hand.
Okay. We will return to public comment at the end of the meeting as well. Which brings us to our student report, which is going to be given by a non-student. Yes.
Not the face.
Course.
A lifelong
Not the face that you
learner.
wanted to see, I understand, but Nora said she would join by, not Google, Zoom.
Zoom, okay.
But I told her, because of the roads, I told her I got it. So
Okay.
she sent me this. I forgot my glasses, so bear with me. Student Council has seen a lot of student participation for Wellness Week bingo boards. During the Student Council meeting today, we put the prize baskets together for the raffle ticket winners. So it's been a good, I think, somewhat relaxed week as we ease into second semester, and I thank Student Council for that. Our second piece is the Hockey Fight for Cancer game and fundraiser bake sale run by Student Council in the Booster Club is happening this Saturday. Come and support with an exclamation point. She does this better than I do. Student Council has started to plan for the second semi-formal of the school year. That'll be March 29th. We worked that in and I made it work with the Carps Classic that the school district is now hosting after, I think, at least 3 years of it not being around. So we're excited about that, and we're grateful for the Lebanon School District making that happen. So we have teams clamoring for positions already. It's always been a 40-plus year community event. So that's great, and we're going to put the semi-formal in with it, and that's all she has.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nora.
Yes. Thank Nora for sending us the notes. All right. Correspondence. None. Thank you. All right. So that brings us to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the? Do we do these separately? Or? Yeah. Yes. Can I get a motion to approve the public hearing minutes from January 10th?
I'll make a motion to approve the public hearing minutes from January 10th, 2024.
A motion by MJ, second by Steve.
I'd say both public hearing minutes.
Yes.
The one for the donation and the one on the school district budget.
Okay. So both public hearing minutes. You agree also? Okay. Are there any corrections? Revisions? No? Okay. All those in favor? Okay, Kevin, are you in favor? Thank you. All right, it's 8-0. All right, and a motion for the public meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the Lebanon School Board meeting minutes from January 10th, 2024.
Okay, motion by MJ, second by Steve. Are there any corrections to those? MJ?
Under number 8, at the end of the first paragraph, I think it should say Manchester School of Technology, not Technicity.
Yes, okay. Any other corrections?
That's a pretty cool term, though.
It is a cool term.
We should coin it. All right. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, great. Unanimous, thank you. And a motion for the non-public minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the non-public meeting minutes for January 10th, 2024.
All right. Oh, motion by MJ, second by Mary. All right.
Change it up.
I know. All right. Any corrections, additions, changes to this? No? Okay. All those in favor? approved, 8-0 again. All right, which brings us to nominations and resignations and acknowledgements.
I'll make a motion to approve the nominations and resignation sheet dated January 24th, 2024.
Okay, motion by MJ, seconded by Steve. Any questions? Yep.
So effective date says 12/21. Is there
Correct.
a reason for just saying it?
She was working up until that date,
Okay.
Okay.
or that's what she gave her notice. It was effective basically immediately.
Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor of the motion to approve the nominations and resignations? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. All right. Okay, so we're moving on to new business. We have a presentation about a sabbatical that we approved. So Sarah Bennett is going to come and speak to us.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. I think I have a slideshow. I don't know, do you all have it? Okay. So I did a sabbatical last school year, and I had the opportunity to start my master's degree in Shakespeare and Education through the University of Birmingham at the Shakespeare Institute in Stratford-upon-Avon in England. So in the fall, I'm going to go over my courses, the shows I got to go and see, the people that I met that I've sort of formed a network with, and then what my room looks like, my classroom looks like now based on kind of what I've learned and what I've experienced, and then what more I'm going to do with this. So I took 2 classes in the fall, 2 classes in the spring. And one thing that was really sort of refreshing about it was to be a student again and sort of remember, like, what are the stressors? Like, how exciting it is to be kind of like pushed to your limit and then find, you know, where you can succeed and where you still need to learn. And I also got the opportunity in these classes, they were through Zoom, although it didn't ever feel like it, which was awesome. We got to interview like directors, people who had worked at like the National, the Royal Shakespeare Company. We got to interview actors. One time we did a set designer, which was way out of my wheelhouse. It was fascinating to learn about, and I have stuff I can bring back to the classroom for that. But the best class, I think I can say that, none of my professors are here. The best class was Shakespeare and Pedagogy, and we went to Stratford-upon-Avon for a week-long course, and we were at the Institute all day, and it was with teachers from the UK and Germany. And then I got to work with like the woman who's the director of the Royal Shakespeare Company Education Program, and she's a prominent scholar in England, so that was like, I don't know, I'm gonna try not to get too nerdy. But that was really exciting and just like a wealth of information. We did a workshop with the Royal Shakespeare Company, an acting workshop, and then we got to go see some shows. So I got to see Julius Caesar, which was weird for sure. And then I also got to go to the Sam Wanamaker Theater, which is in London. And I don't know if anyone has been, but they light it with candlelight, like it would have been during Shakespeare's time, like actual legit candles, a real fire hazard, but beautiful, like theater space. And the show was wonderful. And so that was just like a really cool experience to sort of like see Shakespeare in England with some of my classmates too, who are also teachers. And, oh, I just lost my slides, sorry. And there are people too, like we all have a group chat together and we bounce lesson plans off of each other and sort of think about integrating like what we've learned in our courses. And so that's been really cool to have that network that I think will probably last for a long time. So what I'm working on doing this year, and this will be sort of a little bit longer term, is integrating different Shakespeare pedagogies together. So the first one is a sort of rehearsal room where you bounce ideas off each other, you try saying lines different ways, you think about different motivations for the characters based on like the actual text. My favorite one that I'm working on right now is the idea of frames that this woman, Ayanna Thompson, who's a pretty prominent educational scholar, has come up with, and it's made me rethink about the way kids approach a Shakespeare text. So instead of having them like, okay, let's work through the plot, let's work through what's happening, instead I take a section of the play and I give them a frame like revenge, and we focus on like, can you pull out any lines or any language where they're maybe talking about revenge or doing a metaphor for revenge, and working through it kind of from like the inside out and then getting to the plot. And it seems sort of obvious, but it's not typically done. It works so much better. Like the discussions that we've had this year, particularly on Othello, I like was frantically taking notes one day because I was like, oh, I didn't think of that. And I'm like, I didn't quite hear what you said. Can you say that again? And like jotting it down. So that has been, I think, really good for the students to kind of take that different approach because it gives them a little more ownership over like discussing the text beyond just what's happening. Then I had done two workshops a while ago about art integration and Harvard Project Zero and sort of thinking strategies. So I'm using those as well. Like we look at a text or a passage and then kind of talk about what we think it means, do some analysis, and then feed them a little more information, like cultural context. Like here are some medical beliefs at the time about bodies. How might that make us rethink this passage? And so then they're sort of evaluating their own thinking and like taking in new information and how to like rethink what you thought before, which has been really useful. I feel like I have way more history and context and access to literary criticism that I didn't have before. And I don't know that they love the literary criticism, but I think it's good for them, like vegetables, sort of, where they're looking at like, this is how a professional writer writes about these things. Like, what can we learn from it? What can we pull away from it? How can we sort of imitate what they do well? And then the other thing I've been doing, which was sort of inspired by that idea of frames, like just looking at revenge, is hyper-focusing on one sort of literary device in a play. So like, again, to talk about Othello, there are a lot of meta-theatrics in the play where like the villain is kind of organizing and orchestrating everything that's happening. So looking at the play through a literary device too seems to be working. Which is a new thing, and it feels a little bit risky, but we're trying it. So I think that's like a short overview of what I'm trying to do with the pedagogy. And then for what's next, I am in my last class of the program, which is really sad. And fall semester I just finished up. It was about bodies in the medical world and super weird and interesting, so at least I have enough facts to kind of like pull them in if they start to stray away, some weird stuff. And then it just gives the kids like another way to sort of look at the play, especially like the science kids who maybe aren't as into literature traditionally. And then I have one class, and then I'll do my dissertation over the summer. And what the two things I'm sort of working on is these integrated pedagogies, like because most of the writing and the scholarship is about like doing one at a time as opposed to looking at them all together. So a lot of them are just rehearsal room, like how can we make this like a theater, but then that sort of misses like the literary analysis. So my focus is going to be on how to kind of like layer those in the classroom. And my other interest is professional development around Shakespeare. It's insanely expensive in the US. Like, I don't know, I just looked at a webinar that was like $450 for like 3 hours. Like, that's insane. So I would like to sort of invest some of my time and energy in that, thinking about how to make professional development accessible, affordable for teachers who want to learn more about Shakespeare, and how to incorporate it into their classrooms. So
Thank
I think
you.
that's everything.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Sarah? The literary criticism is good for them, so.
It is, it's so good.
Even if they don't like it, it's really good for them.
I think someday they'll come back and be like, Miss Bennett, we love doing literary criticism. It helped us so much. And then also, if I can just make a quick plug for our end of the year play, the kids will be adapting, directing, performing, making the set designs, costumes, props for their own Shakespeare play. And we don't have a date, but once we do, you should all come. It's super fun. Usually a little hot, so bring an umbrella and some water.
Thank you for this. I've heard from one of your science-oriented kids who would normally not love this, that he really loves it. So
Oh, yay.
he's excited. So that's good, high praise, unsolicited praise. So I think you're doing a great job of applying these things, and they sound really fascinating to me, but I'm an English geek, so I would love that anyway. But thank you so much for reporting. We appreciate you coming back and telling us what you did.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, that takes us to our SAU leadership team update, a superintendent's update.
Sure, I just want to start with recognition. So January is School Board Appreciation Month. It provides an excellent opportunity to acknowledge the dedication and commitment that you guys bring to your roles, your tireless efforts in guiding the district, making critical decisions, and ensuring the best possible outcomes for our students doesn't go unnoticed. Your collective wisdom, leadership, and passion for education significantly contribute to the success and growth of the Lebanon School District. I'm grateful for the collaborative spirit and support you provide to our students, staff, and parents. Thank you for your ongoing commitment to excellence, and I look forward to working together to advance our goals and aspirations of our district. Each of you were provided a card made by one of our elementary students, so thank you.
I think we should hold them up for the camera.
Yes. We have some budding artists in the group. Thank you. Next, just an update on Lebanon Middle School. Erin Mills has been appointed point of contact. Karen Dubois and I met with the staff yesterday. Parent letters had went out. We have active postings now for an interim principal and a full-time principal. Today, our building leaders from all schools met to develop a plan and a schedule to come over to support the staff and leadership at Lebanon Middle School, so I want to commend them for their collaborative spirit. Monday, we will be having a parent meeting in this room at 6 p.m. To discuss concerns from parents. And then within a week, we will be engaging with a consultant to do some visioning work with the staff here and our community. And as soon as those dates are solidified, I will send them to the board as an update. Any questions?
Can we do the Zoom meet? Can we do the meeting on Monday by Zoom too?
Sure, that's a great idea. I can share that out.
Just 6 o'clock is probably dinner time. Maybe
Sure.
So just have.
Yep,
that
I can send that out to the staff, the families. Thank you.
Did you say there's 2 job postings?
There's an interim for the remainder of this year, and then there will be the full-time position for next year as well.
So how long until, I guess, you would have that interim principal in place is the plan or the thought?
Well, we want to find the right candidate that can come in. We do have a solid plan now, but if there was a candidate that was interested in kind of helping us out for the rest of the year, we would consider that as well.
Do you have another question, Kevin?
No, I hadn't considered this. Anyways, it's
Okay.
useful to know. Thank you.
And one thing that I would just want to include, we met yesterday on Take Flight. We had a really large group there. It was very exciting from our press release. Thank you, Dr. Robinson, who supported us with that press release. We are starting to get community mentors and volunteers that want to volunteer for the program. So I think it was the first time we got the full scope of this. It was exciting, a little overwhelming, and there's a lot of work to be done, but it's going to be a great opportunity for our current students and future students of the Lebanon School District. What was amazing, we had a 4th grader who attended the presentation, who was quite articulate, and after that asked if he could join the high school class as a 5th grader. But it got our wheels turning as about ways that we can provide some opportunities for our middle school students next year to be exposed to this plane build, so we can make sure we continue the excitement that's happening. So thank you, and thank you, Dr. Robinson.
Thanks. All right. Thank you. Any questions about that? Take flight? Anything else for the superintendent? Okay. All right. That takes us to the warrant articles. And Tim, yes?
Amy said a lot of nice things about the board. I think I can learn from that. Maybe I should be nice to the board, huh? So I spent some time on the warrant, as we talked about last time. So what is in front of you is it's basically got to be final, except for maybe grammar mistakes we might find or whatever. But this has been approved by DRA, Department of Revenue. It's been approved by our lawyer, and actually mostly written by our lawyer. So the final form has 4 articles, basically 3 articles of substance. I guess we'll start from the bottom because it's easiest. Article 4, which is the special education. It's technically an expendable trust fund. I actually couldn't tell you what the difference between that and the cap reserve fund is. They operate the same, but I went back to 2004 when this fund was founded, and it's called an expendable trust fund. So, and that is basically what we've always done. So we're saying, the board wanted to say we're going to put $250,000 into that fund if there's any money left out of money at the end of the year. What Jim O'Shaughnessy wanted us to put in there is a note. So the note on there, and I've seen this in other districts. We haven't typically done this, but you know, his opinion, especially since what we're doing with the next article up, has put a note. So what we're trying to do is we're seeking to, the board, see, there's already a mistake. The board seeks to appropriate funds from next year's fund balance to cover the cost of anticipated increases in special education costs next school year. So that's that. Article 3 is where what we talked about, where we combine them, and this again was suggested by DRA, and Jim liked it. So this says to see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $800,000 to be added to the Lebanon School District construction and renovations of school buildings capital reserve fund previously established. The first $200,000 shall come from general taxation, with the balance of up to $600,000 to come from the June 30th fund balance available for transfer on July 1 in excess of $1 million. So that you'll see what the idea is, and really, from the DRA and the lawyer, this seems to be the best way to do what you want to do. Is you want to try to, we want $200,000 sort of mandatory part of your taxes, and then if there's anything left, we'll do the rest of it. So that's what that says. Does that make any sense? Hopefully, because that's what they wanted me to do. The board seeks to accelerate the growth of this fund to address ongoing capital needs. Just a simple note on what we're trying to do, why it's a little different, a little bit more than usual. All right, now Article 2, that's the budget article. The one more change that DRA made me do on this, and I mean, it's been a learning experience for me too, but the difference here is that this number, $55,056,420, is $250,000 less than we talked about. The DRA said if you want to take money from the special ed fund and reduce your expenses, you need to net it out. Basically, you take out the revenue from the special ed fund and you take out the expenses, and you do it separately because your agents to expend out of that fund. So that's how we do that's how we do all of our. Right. For example, if you want when you want to renovate a classroom out of the cap reserve fund, we don't put it in the budget. We take it out of the cap reserve fund directly. So that's what we're going to do with the special ed $250,000. So this budget with 420, and then in September or so we'll have a public hearing to take it to $250,000 out of the special ed fund to pay for special ed expenses. So the net result is it brings the number closer to the default. the net result is the same on taxes. We've been talking about $1.37. So that's the final change. But what I would need tonight is obviously answer any questions, and then we need to vote on what you think about these articles, because we have to put a tally on here. And then a third thing is to sign the cover page with your trusting me that I'm going to take the cover page with any sort of grammatical mistakes I made to correct, so they can be posted probably Friday. They have to be posted by Sunday, so I think Diane asked us to probably post it Thursday or Friday. Hopefully Friday, so I can fix it tomorrow.
And just for new people, when we do this part of the budget and we vote, the tallies that go on here are not necessarily tied to the original votes that we had for the budget. It's really the tally of the votes for tonight. Just FYI, there is that slight distinction.
Yeah, and it's seems kind of an odd distinction, but there has been debate. You know, if someone didn't really like the final budget number 2 months ago, but they voted for it now. They're not the same, but they could be the same. That's confusing.
Yes. I just
Sorry.
have, oh, go ahead. Kevin?
Sorry if I misunderstood this, but so the 55,056 is subtracting out the $250,000.
Yep.
That now the voters get a chance to vote on, right?
Because you're agents to expend, you can expend money out of the cap reserve funds without voters giving them an extra vote. That they have a public hearing where we say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take $250,000 out of the special ed cap reserve fund to pay for these expenses. And they can raise their hand and say, I don't agree with that, or you shouldn't do that. But the choice to do so is yours. And the reason why that is there was a separate article several years ago where the voters gave the board it's called being an agent to expend.
I guess so to go along those lines, aren't you kind of confusing two things? Because Article 4 isn't that to fund the capital reserve after any leftover after you've done the funding from Article 3? Because you're talking about then automatically putting $250 back in the budget, but isn't that kind of mixing two things? I mean, you may need to put $250 in the budget out of the capital reserve, but it's not guaranteed that you're going to get $250 to put back in
Correct.
the budget with Article 4. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Right. What the Article 2 originally did was we were going to spend $250 and take $250 to pay for it. And DRA said, you got to take that out. That's a whole separate conversation. We know we're going to need to spend the $250 because we've done the budgeting. So to pay for it is you just do this separate. It's one more step. In some ways it's easier, some ways it's harder. I mean, I prefer to keep it in there because I don't have to do a public hearing and all this other stuff, but it is what it is. So.
I have a question on Article 3, the note. The board seeks to accelerate the growth of this fund to address ongoing capital needs. It's really to address ongoing construction and renovation needs, right? It's going to capital, but I mean, because it's going into that fund, and I think the reason we're doing it is because we want to be able to address ongoing construction and renovation. And I think that's the thing we'd like to emphasize, so we're repeating that.
I can make that change.
Okay. Yeah. And then you already noted this, that the note in Article 4 is just missing the word board.
Yep.
Right?
Sorry, Will, can you just clarify, just say more, like...
Because we're moving it from because we're doing this to renovate the capital reserve fund because we want to build in money for ongoing construction and renovation. I just want to reiterate that it's for the construction and renovation capital needs. So just because I think people don't read these articles very much, but they might very well read the note.
And
So,
you feel that this note doesn't say that?
yeah, I mean, I think capital is capital, but I think when you're specifically saying the capital is for construction and renovation, I think that is
But it
more,
says the growth of this fund.
I understand that. I'm just saying people don't read. So,
Right, and I'm not understanding how your proposed change clarifies it.
It just adds construction and renovation capital needs. I'm just saying adding those three words in between.
The concern that I have about doing that, if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, is that I actually thought the the note was good and very clear, and I think my concern is that if you stick is sort of exactly the flip side of exactly what you're saying, which is I'm concerned that if you stick the words construction and renovation needs in there, they're gonna see construction and renovation needs rather than, and think, wait a minute, what are we building? Instead of, and I didn't hear anything about this, and I don't know what this, just sort of, I feel like that actually introduces more words for people to muckle onto, rather than just saying, address ongoing capital needs of this fund, which feels more straightforward to me.
So we can,
I
we disagree, so we have to decide.
Okay.
So, we can have a motion, and then we can decide.
I mean, I think the motion is that the warrant stands as is. If you want to make if somebody wants to make a motion to change it, that's fine, but we have to consider it as is, right?
Right, so I can make a motion, but I don't love to make motions as the chair, but I can. Make a motion to, I guess the other thing is, before I do that, do we have thoughts, the rest of you?
I'm wide open. Looks like I'm praying it.
I like capital needs being funded from the capital reserve fund. So it sort of seems to fit, the language fits the purpose in my mind.
Okay.
Can you tell me again what you had recommended?
I'm just suggesting that we say, that it says, the board seeks to accelerate the growth of this fund to address ongoing construction and renovation capital needs. The fund itself is called the Lebanon School District Construction and Renovations of School Buildings Capital Reserve Fund. It's a very long name. So not repeating the whole name, but emphasizing the construction and renovation part of it. But again, I'm fine either way. I think more specificity is always better than less specificity, but that is me. I know, well, I haven't made a motion yet, so I can. And if we do, if I don't get a second, then.
Make an amendment to, so.
We can do it either way. We can do we vote on all of these, and we make an amendment on that, or we have a motion specifically on this, change the language or not, and then do the rest of either way.
Yeah, do your motion first.
Yeah, that's what it's fine. Okay, so, and if it doesn't get a second, then it doesn't get a second. So I like to make a motion that we add the words construction and renovation capital needs in between ongoing and capital needs in the note for Article 3. Is there a second?
I have a question. Does finance and facilities feel like that language silos you too much, or
We're already siloed by the fund.
already siloed by it? Okay, never mind.
That's a good question, though. It's a very good question. All right, is there a second, first of all?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, so additional discussion, more questions?
I think that it's fine to add, to me, it doesn't add any confusion, because that's, in all other places, we refer to that fund with construction and renovation before it, so.
I think having the words ongoing construction and renovation suggests we're going over budget on an ongoing project, which, I think I would like to avoid, so if you take out the word ongoing, but otherwise I would say leave ongoing capital is a better description.
I also feel that I think that the article, the title of the article contains the specific name of the fund. I think that shorter notes are actually more likely to be read. I don't think adding additional repetitions of the full name is actually helpful in that context. I want people to read the note, and I think they're more likely to read it if there's fewer words in it.
Can I ask a question? Can we, is there a possibility that we can just leave the board seeks to accelerate the growth of this fund, end it there?
I would not. I do not think we should do that. I think it is important to clarify that we're trying to address ongoing needs.
If I was going to add any words to it, I would say ongoing and future capital needs.
Yeah, so I was just thinking future. That's a different.
I like that.
Okay, hold on.
Where were you before? Would you make the motion?
Well, right. Right. Gotta think. So now that we have the motion, I can withdraw it, or do we have to vote?
Or you can ask, a friendly
Or
amendment.
we can friendly amendment. Okay, so what are you suggesting? Ongoing and future?
To change the wording of the note to say the board seeks to accelerate the growth fund to address ongoing and future capital needs.
I like that. Okay, so that's a friendly amendment. Takes away the other thing.
And I'm also good with friendly
Okay.
amendment.
Thank you. All right, that's the new motion. All those in favor of adding and future capital needs to Article 3? Raise your hands. Okay, that's 7. All those against? 1. Okay? All right, motion passes.
I don't have a problem with it. I just don't need to support it. It's fine.
2 words.
It's
not
fine.
3. Okay. All right. So then, can we do, Tim? Can we do a motion to approve all?
I think so,
All of the
yeah.
warrants now. Okay.
I mean, in the past, we've done this
And you just
verbatim
have-
reading it, but I think we can just approve the whole
Yeah.
warrant.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wait, don't
No,
we
you
have to
have
do
to
the
go by one,
recommendation
because you could have to have
voting?
a
You have to
Well,
have a
that's
tally
true.
for each one.
I'm
That's
sorry,
right.
yeah,
Never mind. All right. So we need a motion
we all
for.
agree on all.
We need a motion for Article number 1.
I don't think, no, we don't need for one.
What do you need for 1?
Nope. We just need
That's not
monetary
ours.
ones.
Oh, that's not ours. That's just theirs. Okay, monetary ones. Article 2.
I'll make a motion to approve Article 2 operating budget as written.
Wait, sorry. So are we voting on approving the way it's written, or are we voting to recommend? Which is this vote?
So we're voting to have this included on the warrant as it is written.
Okay, so this is just about the wording. This isn't about us us recommending it.
No, I think it is about
It is.
recommend.
It is.
Okay, so this isn't really about the wording. This is
Okay.
about what this is us voting to say,
recommend this-
you know,
this
this
article.
many of us
I vote
recommend
to
it.
recommend this Article 2 operating budget as
Got it.
written.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Motion by MJ, second by Steve. Excellent. Any additional clarifications? Okay, all those in favor? 8-0. Got that? Okay.
And there's just that slight little
And I should,
hyphen.
I should put 1 absent, right? I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 1 absent. I mean, it's fine.
We don't record other votes that way.
Yeah, but the reason we're doing this is because people want to know the majority, so if they would wonder. Somebody would wonder, I can tell you, I could name who would wonder. So, yeah, that little hyphen just in front of the parentheses just needs to go.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Article 3.
I vote to recommend Article 3, appropriation to the Lebanon School District Construction and Renovation Capital Reserve Fund
As amended.
as amended.
Second that.
Okay, motion by MJ, second by Steve. Any additional questions? All right, all those in favor? All right, 8-0, 1 absent.
Do we need to also ask who's gonna read these at deliberative session?
Well, let's approve them and then we'll do that.
One thing at
One thing at a time. But let's take out those little hyphens too in front of those parentheses as well. Tim?
Or no hyphens.
No, no hyphens. No.
The semicolon that got to a colon too, I think, by
Yep.
note.
Yes.
On the
that's your
Article
regular-
3, that
Article
looks like
3
a
is just-
semicolon.
it's just
And
colon.
a capital V and a capital R.
Wait, where's that?
Under majority vote required. Consistency.
Yeah. Same thing for Article 4.
And there's a period after the no in Article 3. There's a- there's a- There's a colon after Article 4.
It's all over the place.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and do the Article 4.
So I make a motion to approve Article 4, appropriation to the Lebanon School District Special Education Expendable Trust Fund as written.
As amended.
Oh,
That's what we amended.
as
about 6
amended.
things. Okay, motion by MJ, second by Steve. Any additional periods and colons and semicolons? I think we got them. All right, all those in favor? All right, 8-0. Okay.
Yeah, so the last piece about the warrant is, for some of the new school board members, you may not know, but we've typically, and I can only tell you what we've done in the past, I guess we'll do this year, but there's typically a script that gets generated to be read at the deliberative session, so, and so the deliberative session is the moderator's meeting, it's not a school board meeting, so the moderator will open up and he'll ask for a motion to put Article 2 on the ballot, and somebody will make a motion. That's what you kind of have to talk about. Don't do that tonight necessarily, but he'll be saying, does someone want to speak to it? So someone needs to speak to each one of these articles at the deliberative session, you'll basically read out loud the script that has been written for you, unless you want to go ad lib, I guess. But so tonight, you know, Bill's going to want someone to volunteer to read Article 2 or Article 3 or Article 4. So, and it's really, because there's a script, it's really not that complicated.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. You just have to read it as written. And sometimes there have been 9 articles and 9 people, but today there's only 3. So does anyone want to volunteer to read Article
4? I think
Someone has to read Article 1. So anybody want to volunteer to read Article 1, which is the shortest one. Mary? Okay. And it has no numbers except for 3. 1. Okay. Article 2. Any volunteers? 2, Wendy? Okay. Article 3. MJ. And Article 4.
I'll do it.
Okay. Thank you. And like Tim says, this will all be written out, so it won't be, if you want to do anything besides show up. Okay?
The other documents, we talked about the default budget. So tonight, there's a default budget page, there's the warrant article signature page. And in the past, we've done these electronically, but Jim O'Shaughnessy didn't know this till this year, but he's like, I don't really like to do the electronic signatures for these things. I want them in person. So tonight, we need you to sign those 2. And the third one is the MS-26. This just ties out to the Article 2. Well, you'll find all 3 articles in there. This is basically the numbers of the budget we've been talking about in the form that the state requires. So that's the third thing that needs to be signed. If you have any questions about the budget we've been talking about this November, that's really all it is. So.
But we do need to make a motion to accept.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yep. Well, can't hurt. Make a motion to accept it. The MS-26.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed 2024-2025 budget as written on the MS-26 form.
The default
Perfect.
budget, default budget.
No, the regular budget. That's MS-DSB.
Oh my gosh.
You don't get your state numbers straight? I'm just
Okay.
joking. It's insane.
All right.
I see.
She's got that. I need a second for this. All right. Motion by MJ, second by Steve. Any other questions? I've seen this many times now. Okay. All right. All those in favor? Okay. 8-0. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience and honesty. And
So what?
it's
what
an editing
happens-
session every year.
What happens if at the deliberative session, something changes with the budget?
Well, the MS-26 is the form that has to be posted before the deliberative session. If somebody changes the deliberative session, then that's the number that goes on the warrant. And then there's another form I have to file out
Okay.
after the budget gets passed. So this is just the deliberative session pre-budget budget.
Okay.
Okay. All right. That takes us to the second reading of policy JJA and JJAR.
So I don't actually know a lot about these 2 policies necessarily,
Yeah.
because they were originally, they came as they are in our packet for a first reading to the board on November 9th of 2022. And they never came for a second reading. So here we are. So unless somebody sees something,
So there's a bunch of grammatical stuff that clearly never got put in from 22 to now. But
so
that-
I think we can do it a couple of ways. I think if we feel generally we're okay and there's just some grammatical things, I think we can move it, we can approve it. If there are things that this board in this form wants to revisit any of these things, then we can also send it back to policy committee to look at. But it was in, this is sort of where they last were.
Yeah, I mean, the grammatical things that I have seen are not changing the sense of the policy at all, and I don't personally have any big objections to the policy itself, so. Does anyone else? No? Yes? Hold on.
Well, no, I don't have I guess the one thing, I mean, it says it's outlined in the student handbook, which I get, and it's very robust. But this one just says residing in the district, but in the handbook it specifically says, I believe, about homeschool students that live in the district or non-school students that live in the district, whereas this one doesn't. So I don't know if this first paragraph should be.
It does,
Okay.
for home-educated charter school or non-enrolled district residents.
I'm assuming that this is probably the most updated,
School Board Association one?
yeah. So,
I just didn't know in the opening paragraph.
say that again.
In the opening paragraph, if you should kind of restate that too, because if I'm a homeschool parent and I want to know, it seems like the opening, or at least, I get that it's written in participation, but it almost seems like that should also be part of that first sentence.
So in
I'm not.
B at the bottom of the page.
Yep.
It specifies that this is for district students and for home-educated charter school or non-enrolled district school resident students. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So she's suggesting that clarification go up in the first paragraph. It is the policy of the board to allow opportunities for all students residing in the district, including home-educated charter school or non-enrolled districts. I think that's what you're suggesting.
Right,
Yeah.
and then you can still leave B, but I think it kind of also needs to be highlighted in that opening paragraph. And then the handbook does go into greater detail on all that stuff, so I think that is fine, but.
What do you think?
I'm pausing because I
don't think that's changing the sense, because it's just reiterating the same people are here, by the way.
Yeah,
I think that all of these people in that B section are residing in the district. And so I don't know.
But
so
it says for all students residing, and they're not necessarily, like, if I was a homeschool parent, I don't consider myself a student of the district, so that's where I think it needs to have a little more clarification of there as just an opening, welcoming statement to everybody.
I think my own opinion is that all of these groups are considered students.
Students, and they have to be student age.
And I think it's student here is just sort of, as, like the age group that more
Right.
than like a
Like the
specific-
elementary would follow the elementary activities and.
Right. I don't know that it needs that clarification.
What do the rest of you think? Mary says, you don't think, okay. We're doing a straw poll. Steve's reading again. Tia?
Because it says.
I read students as residing, just as
Whoever.
child residing.
Okay.
And I think in B, it clarifies district students. And for, in that section, it's sort of saying the students that are part of the district versus homeschool. So I think, and up here, I think it's just sort of saying students generally, lumping all those groups.
Do you want to send it back to policy, or do you want?
But
Okay.
I just think in an effort to try to reduce ambiguity in our policies, that's just a little thing, but I'm not gonna stop it. I just don't think it's really, I think it's not clear enough.
Okay. We'll maybe make that sentence better somehow. I think we're fine. So we're doing a second reading, and we just have to, do we have to take any action on it, or do we need to?
no, we need
Right.
to vote to approve it, but if we're changing language,
But again, the language is not changing the sense of it's not changing the meaning of the policy, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think this changes the meaning of what it's saying. It's agreeing with what's already written in the policy below, so it's not
okay.
changing the meaning of the sense of the policy. I don't think so. Okay, so we need a motion on these two policies.
I make a motion to accept or approve policies JJA, JJAR.
Okay, moved by Wendy, second by Mary. Any additional comments on these two? No? All right, all those in favor? Okay, great. All right. Then it moves us to discussion and action on the LAU plan.
Sure. This is the LAU plan. The LAU plan is a name for the Local Educational Learner Plan, and it's derived from the Lau versus Nichols court case. It's a ruling that requires services to be provided to English language learner students to assist in overcoming educational barriers of limited English proficiency. This plan needs to be approved by the school board every 3 years. It was put together by the leadership team. They're listed there on the cover page. Currently, just some background, we have 113 English language learners. We serve 58 of them. 51 of them are on monitoring, so they've met their criteria, and 4 have refused services. I just wanted to note the English learners team have worked hard to come up together. There's limited changes from last year, just changes that were updated in forms from the state level, but the Lebanon School District LAU plan is considered to be an exemplar in the state and is being shared for others to help with as they create these plans.
Great. Do we have any questions on the LAU plan?
If there's any grammatical errors that you want to send to me, you can send them and I can get them to the team. And then I will get that and we'll have the date and we can send that out and to post this for our families.
There were a couple of things that just.
I do recommend it sometime in future board meeting. We have some of our English language learners, teachers come to update this board on some of the changing needs of our English language learner students. So
I think there was some language, on page 8, section 3, under A, rationale and goals. We use the word compete, and that seems problematic. I don't know that we want to encourage competition, academic competition amongst
we
our.
can come another, I can't think of the word that you're saying, but we want them to be able to perform up with their educational peers, absolutely.
And that might be it, perform on the education.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I think there's one, it's several times in this, and you can correct me because I don't actually know where we stand on this now. They use the term mainstream students, mainstream, and I'm not sure if we're still saying mainstream, or are we?
In the English language word,
Okay.
in that world, they used to use mainstream
I just didn't
versus
know, so I
a
wanted to make sure.
segregated program.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure that was kosher.
Different from our special ed
Right.
language.
Exactly. We don't use it there, so that's confused. Okay.
Kosher's an evolving concept.
I know, kosher changes all the time. All right. Okay, so we need to approve the plan?
Plan.
Okay,
Yes.
so we need a motion to approve the LAU plan. Does anyone want to make this motion? Or MJ? Always making the motions. Yes.
I move to approve the LAU plan as documented, as the one.
Okay. Motion by Steve, second by Mary. Okay. Any additional discussion? All right. All those in favor? Okay, 8-0. All right, thank you. Okay, that takes us to the discussion and action on the 24-25 calendar.
Karen Du Bois is going to come up.
Mhm. Hi, everybody. You made it. Is that mic on?
I don't know.
Is
I
it?
can
Yeah?
project or I can sit. I'd be excited if I could sit.
You can sit, talk loud.
Can I sit and just speak loudly?
Yeah.
Oh,
Or we can move the mic down, it's just a hand mic.
yeah.
It's portable.
You want me to
take that? It's for the people at home. There. Excellent.
It's working. It's on, yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you. In your packets, you have drafts of the 24-25 proposed district calendar. You have 3 copies of the drafts. One is designed to be for staff, and another is for students and families. They're largely the same, although the staff version includes a few dates that are specific to faculty and not necessary for students and families. The third item that you have there is an internal workbook, which if you flip it over, includes some information about how we calculated hours, days, etc., for your review. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have about the proposed calendar for next year.
Kevin, were you?
It's just hard to read the calendar in the black and white.
Black and
to
white,
tell
yeah.
What is what.
Yeah.
I believe in the digital packet there's a color version that's linked.
MJ has a question.
Hi, MJ.
Or 2.
I have a couple questions. So one, why the switch to E for Teacher Professional Day? Just because I know people are used to seeing the T, so.
They are. I think there's, educator is more inclusive of our paraeducators and other professionals who may not have a teaching responsibility in the district, but who are educators nonetheless.
So
We
then-
can certainly switch that back easily.
Well, no, I'm saying, so then maybe the key should say Educator Professional Day instead of Teacher Professional Day?
That is an excellent point and an easy shift to make. Thank you.
And then I'm also wondering why we're calling the day after Thanksgiving a holiday, because it's not a
That
federal
was the
holiday.
subject of some internal discussion. So the H's are there to designate holidays when the district offices as well as schools are closed. So that's a day when you can't find any of us at work in any building, as opposed to just days when the schools are closed. We discussed just putting H's on all of them or putting H's on none of them. And again, easy to make a change should you prefer it to be more uniform.
And then I guess my final question is, why are we extending Christmas break for 2 days after January 1st?
That was also the subject of great debate, and several versions of this calendar, including ones in which we returned on the 2nd, were vetted with various stakeholders. There are pros and cons to having a 2-week December break. One of the cons would be that it's a long time away from school, and that it means that we're here a little bit longer into June. But the pros included returning for 2 days. We anticipate that there might be a heavy number of absences. It's difficult to re-engage for only 2 days. And most significantly, Hartford set its calendar for our students who participate in the HACDC program. They are not returning until the 6th, and so a number of schools in the area are following suit, including us, we propose.
Just 2 questions. There's a early release PK to 12, and then there's early release PS to 8.
That's a typo. It should all say preschool because we do not call our pre-K
it's not consistent, and I think I'm seeing it on a couple of them. And so, which one do you go with? Do you go PK
we
or
refer
PS?
to our earliest learners as preschool students, so it should say PS everywhere. I apologize. I thought I'd gotten them all, but we'll fix that.
Then an additional addendum to that, which is that as a preschool parent, when I received this for the first time, I had no idea that PS meant preschool. And there is a fair amount of confusion in the preschool classrooms frequently around which days, sometimes they get canceled, sometimes they get moved around. So I know it's not a lot of people, but it would be helpful to
I think up until this version of the calendar, many versions of the calendar just said K to 12, and then our preschool
that was also
coordinator
confusing.
pointed out that we actually have preschool students and we should honor them.
Yes.
I'm not sure what the rate solution to that is, but Lil looks like she has a
I have a
suggestion.
solution. Well, in the key, where it says parent-teacher conferences and it says PS to 8, just write preschool with capital P and capital S, and then this will be clear.
I think there's a formatting challenge with that was significant.
Oh, that didn't fit?
It doesn't totally fit.
I would honestly, as a PS is less clear to me than PK.
Yeah.
We may call them preschool students, but PK, at least I assume that so just, you could poll
It's true.
people on
I've
that
never
one,
seen
but I
PS
have no
before.
idea what PS could mean
Great.
anything.
Super.
I'm comfortable with the
Let's-
pre-K.
Let's make it PK throughout.
The
Excellent.
other item I have is that Juneteenth is misspelled. There is a missing E.
Oh, yeah.
There sure is. It's Juneteenth in there.
It is Juneteenth.
Excellent. I cannot tell you how many eyes have been on this document, and I'm glad to know that there were still
I do
fun,
n-
fun
this
mistakes
yeah,
to
this
find.
is not intended to be a nitpicky, annoying thing. I just felt
Oh
that
no,
that was
it's
a
very important that it be
that
correct.
felt important.
and clear. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate it too, because I was just corrected a little while ago, so. My mistakes are,
I agree that pre-K seems more
More
clear,
clear. Yeah.
to be a better term to use here for this purpose.
And we haven't typically finished school on a Friday? Are we thinking we're going to have a successful Friday?
I am thinking that based on our LEA contract and the required number of days in school, that's the day that we will end our school year. So successful or not, that's the day it ends.
Well, I think we ended on a Monday once. I'm not sure that was a successful Monday either, so.
Yeah, that was a pretty annoying,
Exactly.
I mean,
It is Friday the 13th, and
so it
Seems
is
like
hard
we
to
shouldn't
engage
be
for 2
there.
days. So then, like, what's the value of starting before Labor Day? And I realize this is probably within things you can't do much about, but you give up those 2 days and then you get back 2 days at like that January break.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. We are already beginning one day after Hartford, so we already are misaligned there. To begin 3 days later than Hartford further sets us apart from that calendar, which is difficult from an equity standpoint for the students that participate in that program. You know, it's the preference of our employees as expressed through our unions that we begin in August so that we're not in school all the way into the third week of June, which would be difficult for our students.
Sure,
So this
but
is the
I'm
recommendation.
suggesting that switch, right? Because I don't know, just speaking as parents, and you know, that's a tough time, tough schedule to manage in both ways.
I understand. I'm not sure I understood the end of the question. So you're not suggesting that we switch it for June.
No, I'm suggesting you switch it for the January break and come back on the 2nd, right?
are you
That's certainly
suggesting we
within the
miss?
purview of the board to decide, I think, but we vetted this with our stakeholder groups, and this is our recommendation at this time.
And I think we want to try to stay as aligned with our Hartford partners as possible. The students are going for industry credentials, so it's a great disadvantage for those days that they miss and they're not aligned. And, we have lots of successful students there that we want to maintain that.
But if we came back early, it's not like they would miss Hartford days if Hartford starts after us in that situation.
But in August, like if we started
No,
later,
I
yeah.
know, yeah, August makes sense, but you were talking about the December break?
Right.
Kevin?
I think
Yeah, both.
So I think if we started after Labor Day, we'd need to recapture 2 student days. And if we recaptured those in January to avoid going further into June, we'd be further misaligned. So that would be a total of 5 days misaligned with the Hartford program, which we can avoid 4 of the 5 with this calendar.
So theirs is set though, and theirs is inflexible to change. Is that-
They have a different set of state requirements, a different set of union agreements, and unfortunately, yes, theirs is set, is my understanding.
And how many, I'm sorry, I don't actually know, how many students attend the Hartford program?
I'm gonna just turn to.
I'm going to say about 65,
Yeah, about
65 to 70.
Anywhere from 55 to 70 on any given year.
Uh-huh.
Did we budget for 75 for this upcoming year? I think we did.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 75.
So I guess just to kind of go along with Kevin's point, though, I think that in the district, having that extra 2 days in January is definitely a hardship for our pre-K through 6th grade families. And the difference I understand Hartford extends it, but the difference is Hartford tends to have a more active rec department that does a lot more wraparound days that time of year and through the vacations, which Lebanon's rec department doesn't. So it's not really helping out a lot of the families of our younger kids by having those 2 extra days at the end of Christmas break. Is creating a lot of childcare hardship for a lot of our district families.
When does Hartford come back in January?
They come back on the 6th, which is the day that's proposed here.
Okay, and if we were to come back earlier than them, what would happen to our kids?
To our students who study at through the Hartford program. Bonnie and Ian, again, would be better able to explain, but we typically find, they're engaged in activities on our campus.
What we've done before when Hartford holds sessions, and we do not, is we run a Hartford bus, but we don't run buses to pick kids up to bring them to school to get on that bus. But we would make a Hartford bus available for those who could get there.
No, we would be in session, but Hartford would not be in session. That's my question.
When we have class and they don't.
That's a good question. That's flex time for them. Some of them don't come to school in the morning and arrive late, and then vice versa, depending on which section they go to.
And
Oh, sorry.
our Hartford students are usually at least juniors, right?
We do have an active CTE program that has anywhere from 3 to 9 sophomores who attend the Hartford, where they rotate through the different programs.
So if I'm understanding, if we decided as a board we wanted to come back on the 2nd, I think we did some of this shifting around last year too. If we wanted to come back on the 2nd, it would mean that we could finish on Wednesday the 11th.
Yes, and we did have versions of this calendar that we, that reflected that timing. So again, not with a different start date in August, but just shifting the 2 days from June to just after the new year. The consensus from the LEA representation was that this was not the preferred option, and also from building leaders. So I share with you that this is the calendar that the district leadership and LEA leadership is proposing.
And so can you explain a little bit about why that preference?
I think it was rooted in the fact that because of our union contracts, we're not able to begin our in-service days any earlier than August 25th. We could explore that possibility, and that is not something that we can pursue. So in order to have the right number of days, the teachers would be then returning for an extra day in the 3rd week of June, just an isolated day on Monday. And there was a feeling, I believe, that more importantly, learning would be not robust in those 2 days in January. It's difficult to return after a long break, particularly for our youngest students. It is difficult, takes a day or two to get them back in the swing of things. Doing that and heading right into a weekend really felt like lost instructional time. So I think if I was understanding the feedback from the teachers, it was just felt like 2 days of lost instruction, and they'd rather have meaningful instruction that can continue through the whole entire week in June.
Okay, so the question though is, would we not have the same period of adjustment if they came back on Monday the 6th?
Yes, but then they're able to make the adjustment on Monday into Tuesday. They can get into their routine for a whole week. It's difficult for younger children to really reestablish a routine in 2 days and then have a weekend.
Like the first weekend in August.
It is a good point.
Right, and I'd say to that point, I mean, we've always been told that a 2, 3, or 3, 4, 5 start or whatever is better to kind of graduate, get the students back in, which I would argue after a 2-week Christmas break, a 5-day week back in school is probably going to have a lot of learning loss by the end of the week, because you're going to lose their attention spans after having so much time away.
And
Again,
yeah, I know.
We did consider it. If you, it's certainly within your purview to send this back and ask the building leadership and the LEA to consider something different, or for you to adopt a calendar that differs from this one.
I guess if I felt like too that the 12th and the 13th were going to be productive learning days. I mean, usually by then there's not, like, the nice thing about having that short week of the last week is because it's like everything's wrap up. There's not I mean, maybe at the high school there's still stuff going on, but there's definitely not in any of the other schools for the most part.
But I think that's true no matter when you end, right?
No,
Whether
but I'm
you-
saying, but if you've got 3 days, 2.5 days
I mean,
where you're
I
just.
think it's true no matter when you end. I mean, I agree,
Right,
I see
'cause
what you're
grades
saying, but
close.
I agree, I believe that it doesn't matter. Like, the last 3 days of school are a wash, no matter whether they're a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I mean, they're a wash.
But
So-
they're instructional days that we need to
They're
count in order to
instructional
be in
days that we need to
compliance.
count.
To be in compliance.
Legally, they are instructional days, which we all acknowledge, absolutely. However, whether they happen or not, what happens during those days varies, let's say. So from my perspective, I don't think that it gains us, for me, it doesn't gain me anything. I am sensitive to the working parent argument for the December break, but I also know that there is a subset of people like myself for whom a 2-week Christmas break is a great idea. So I think we'll have to have a motion on this, because we're not just going to send it back without seeing what everybody thinks. So get ready to think about what you want to say, and then we'll decide. Is there any additional?
Would you like a motion?
Yes.
I move to approve the calendar as suggested, titled Students and Families.
Okay. Okay, there's a motion by Steve, second by Mary. Any additional discussion? Yes.
I think our experts have suggested this calendar as is, and I would value that opinion and support that.
I mean, I think my general pushback is it feels like, we get what Hartford gives us. And I don't know, maybe that's unavoidable, but it doesn't feel great, so.
We do have some state guidelines that we have to maintain a certain
Oh, I
amount of days around that, just because these students are getting industry certification. And there are times when Hartford doesn't call a snow day, we call a snow day. So it's really difficult for us to maintain that equity for those students who are relying on that industry certification.
Yeah, I do feel it should be some sort of a negotiation, though, and again, like, I think, one of the stakeholders are, working parents, right? And so,
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to speak out here for that.
It's good.
One of my concerns about if we were to return on January 2nd is a lot of students have stayed up pretty late the night before and are readjusting on the 1st, which I know in the 2nd maybe they've gone to bed that night, but I think there's still holidays and holiday hangover happening, and that could allow for some adjustment at home if we just go back on a Monday also. If it matters.
Thank you. Anyone else want to say something before we vote? Okay, so the motion on the table from Steve is to accept the students and family calendar as written.
With the changes.
Well, with the
minor
with the
spelling
correction, with the grammatical
corrections
changes.
and
The
pre-K.
grammatical changes go without saying in this board.
Juneteenth
With the grammatical changes. Yes, and correct spellings, yes. Okay, as amended. So, all those in favor of accepting the calendar as amended? Okay, all those opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay, and I don't think we need a.
Can we, though, to Kevin's point and stuff like that, is there a way to reach out to whomever
Be more
might
collaborative.
pay or provide some kind of childcare that if we can talk with rec about having rec programs that might be for those 2 days or
So I think as soon
something-
as this calendar's out, we can send it to Lebanon Rec Department and other providers and see what opportunities that we can do.
And I think to Kevin's or other point that we can reach out to Hartford to try and figure out
Absolutely.
a more collaborative version of this going forward if it's
Do we
possible.
know in Hartford if the state sets their calendar, or do they have flexibility as a district?
I think that they have a differing number of school days. They have far more professional learning days and parent conference days when they don't hold class. So part of what, as Amy was saying, constrains us is that they're already embedded many unavoidable days when we're misaligned with them.
Yep.
So that puts all of the sending schools, including our district, into a position of really needing to align as much as possible. The state of Vermont issues a statewide calendar that's more rigid than our state requires of us. And that is typically, I believe, issued in October, and there are drafts that are circulated by November and December. We're having conversations with them. But while we can discuss being more collaborative, it's, you know, it's a challenging situation because it's not just cross-district, it's also cross-state. But we'll certainly pursue it, and we can bring some of the concerned parties here into the conversation next fall as we begin to do this, so that you can sort of see alongside us how we go about it, if that would be helpful.
I think Mary and I can bring that up in our next Hartford meeting too, and just talk about just that future collaboration as they look to find a new superintendent for the next year as well. So we'll be back.
Great. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we are at school handbooks. We are at 7:45. You all know that I like to have a break. So we can break it up too. Let's do the elementary handbooks first, because that I think is not going to take us very long. So we'll move on to talking about the approving of the elementary handbook. Are any of them here?
They are not.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or issues with the elementary handbooks? The handbooks are in the digital packet, and then the letter and describing the changes and revisions is in your packet, physical packet. Mm-hmm.
I just had, well, one was just a general question overall. I was shocked to see the Lebanon School District statement regarding enrichment and acceleration. So is that something new that has come out recently? And I mean, I don't remember it being discussed at the board before. So I was pleasantly surprised, but I was also surprised that it actually existed.
It came through EC, and I don't think we ever voted. It came through EC and was approved. It never came to the full board to be approved because it was coming in these handbooks. So I think that's what happened. It just
And
got
it was
pushed.
in our notes.
Yeah.
It's always been in our notes.
Okay, and then just in the Hanover Street, it still has Steve listed as the facilities person, so I think that needs to be deleted.
I think somewhere Mary's listed twice. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's elementary
What is it?
in the,
Oh, yeah.
like she's listed as secretary and then listed.
So if we want to talk about the acceleration and enrichment, it's going to be in all of the handbooks, so we can talk about it now.
Well, I think it's important to talk about just because we had so much discussion about enrichment at one of the budget seasons last year and
Yep.
how we needed a district philosophy, and then all of a sudden this showed up and didn't really have a lot of discussion about it.
So it did follow along the discussion that has been going on in EC for 2 years, 3 years actually, but it also followed along that discussion as well. That's one of the reasons why that we were talking about it. So Karen, do you want to? It's linked in your packet, but if Karen want to give us a little background, a little bit.
Hi again. So the enrichment and acceleration statement is something that was developed just in the early days of my tenure a little over a year ago, so fall of 2022. Again, with the EC in conjunction with SALT and the building leadership teams. As I understood it when I came on board, the ask from the board was that we articulate in a meaningful way and cohesive way how we define acceleration and enrichment and in what ways we interpret those terms in relation to our students. In broad strokes, this statement outlines the ways in which we provide enrichment and acceleration opportunities.
Out to me is the decision not to accelerate math until 7. So can you talk a little bit about the basis for that decision? Because in the past, we've started in 4th sometimes, not since COVID.
Sure, I think depending on the year, as I understand it, and maybe the elementary school building and the cocktail of folks we had making these decisions, there were at various times students who were offered acceleration opportunities in math at a younger age. The decision in the course of developing this was taken to really set our sights on 7th grade as the time when that happens for all, both in the interest of promoting equity so that we have a plan that's consistent across the district, and really in support of what we understand to be best practices in math, because increasingly the trend nationwide has been to delay acceleration, which again is moving forward through content at a more rapid rate, as opposed to diving deeper to extend learning in that way. Has been to delay acceleration because there's data to support that students who are accelerated at a young age do not experience the same level of success as students for whom that acceleration is delayed at the high school and collegiate advanced math levels. So stated differently, research has emerged suggesting that students who are top performers in collegiate advanced math classes tend to not have been accelerated at a young age and to have spent longer developing depth and inquiry-based learning rather than moving forward in a formal acceleration pathway. Does that feel, folks on the EC, like what part of what was talked about?
So then, not related then to the elementary school handbook, but in the middle school, if we're, like, there's no discussion about how that acceleration happens for those students that are ready for that.
There's no discussion in the handbook, or there's no
In- or in the
discussion ever
program.
anywhere?
I'd say
the discussion got lost
I'd say
somewhere.
anyway. I mean, we have the statement, and now are there plans now for phase 2 to outline how that actually happens and what you need to do?
I would say that we are working with our middle school staff to better understand the placement procedures that are in place now and make sure that we have a common understanding and a common set of practices around that pathway.
Will that process show up in either a handbook or the program of study so that parents have some sense of when that acceleration might happen or when it's appropriate to have conversations with?
I think it's reflected in the middle school program of studies in that there is an opportunity for students who are ready to take algebra in their middle school years.
Program of studies, it says that they need to have, in order to take AG1, that they need to have completed middle school math 3, but really they would be skipping somewhere, so they wouldn't actually complete middle school math 2 or 3, depending upon. So that's when I was reading, it was confusing.
That's good to know, and I would say that, as you say, while we're not framing it as a phase 2, I would say that that is certainly the next step in our move to create a greater sense of cohesion and common understandings around these decisions.
In addition, tonight we're going to be asking you to send back the middle school handbook. After our meeting with staff yesterday, there were some things that were brought to our attention that I think need to be looked at before it gets sent back out. So we can then go back to that to make sure and maybe put in clearer language around that.
I think it's more in the program of studies. Where it's
Unclear.
confusing.
We've talked about this. I mean, it's not.
We're having
process is
ongoing
changing.
conversations to make sure that we achieve clarity in our math, specifically in our math pathways from 4th through 5th, and then from 5th, 6th into 7th. And those are conversations that are actively ongoing. But I think this enrichment and acceleration statement puts us on the right path towards clarity, both internally and now that it's in the handbooks with our community.
And I think the question that I had for Lil when I was reading it is if, I don't know if it's clear or not, but somehow in our discussion of it, for parents to understand that there is differentiated learning still happening in those, so there's not like true acceleration, but there is differentiation, so there is that opportunity for depth.
Right.
So they don't feel like their math star is losing out on an opportunity or being, I mean,
And to
bored
your-
boys is
to your
never a
point,
good thing.
We did work very hard on the wording in the enrichment document to try to reflect the differentiation that we know goes on in our classrooms, even when they are heterogeneously grouped. That differentiation we hope, always robust and meaningful in deepening learning for our most advanced learners as well as all of our learners.
Yep. Any other questions for the for the elementary school handbook? We've moved into the middle school a little bit, but sticking with the elementary school. Any other questions? No? Okay, so let's act on the motion to accept the sorry, I keep saying it, the elementary handbook
With those amendments.
with those amendments. They're the
both
same.
elementary?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're the same. They wrote together. So the elementary school handbooks have been aligned so that they're exactly the same, except that they say Hanover Street versus.
Well, I don't think they are, because my understanding is Hanover Street doesn't have Cub Care.
Right. I mean, these are the changes. Except everything else is the same
Yeah.
except for what they put on this.
Versus there was a
Change.
whole different.
Right, but
outlook.
my point is, I think you still have to approve each handbook
Okay.
separately, because they aren't mirror images
All
of
right.
each other.
Good plan. Let's do that. So let's make a motion. We had a motion. Do we not have a motion yet? Did we have a motion yet? No. Okay. So can I get a motion to approve the Hanover Street handbook?
I will make a motion to approve the Hanover Street handbook for the 2024-25 school year.
As amended. Can I get a second? As amended. Yeah, okay. Second by Mary. All right. Any additional discussion on Hanover Street? No? Okay. All those in favor? All right. 8-0. Can I get a motion for Mount Leb?
I'll make a motion to approve the Mount Lebanon handbook for the 2024-25 school year.
Okay. Can I get a second for Mount Leb? Mary? Okay. Motion by MJ, second by Mary. Any additional discussion on Mount Leb? All right. All those in favor? Great. Thank you. All right. So we have pulled the middle school handbook, as we just discussed. We have a letter outlining the middle school program of studies revisions. We talked a little bit about some of those changes already. Are there any other comments that people have on the middle school program of studies?
I was kind of looking for more on the reading part.
On page 8, is that what you're?
Yes.
And what more, how?
I can't remember now, but when we had our education meeting, there was one grade level, I think it might have been 7, that didn't really give a list or any kind of clue as to what the books were they were.
Oh, and the language arts on page 6. Okay, so she had
Would
brought-
you let this come back? Karen and I can speak with the middle school team leaders and the curriculum leaders there, and we can add that piece.
Yeah, I think we should probably pull, given the stuff that we brought up, we should probably pull the program.
Yes, if you could
Program of studies as well.
if you could both
Okay.
of them, and then we can have those education.
And I think just in general policy, the policy committee is going through conduct and transportation policies. And I know that I don't remember exactly now where I saw it, but there's a reference to at least one policy that we're withdrawing, so.
Clarify that.
I mean, I don't know if the best way to do that is to like take our current policy minutes and just sort of double check the policies that have recently.
And everyone's
been
using the
moving
same
through.
appendix A, so if we fix it. we
But I
always
think
fix it
they're
once.
actually in the text of,
Right,
I
so we
think
have to
it's,
search. Okay.
yeah, there's something.
All right. We can do that. Okay, so we're pulling the LMS program of studies until later, which, let's just keep going for the high school. The high school program of studies.
Sorry, one
let's-
question. Is there a middle school athletic
Yeah.
and
There is.
co-curricular? We didn't get that.
No, there isn't. So, sorry, there's a high school, but this is another thing when we're discussing about the handbook. There is a very detailed high school athletics and co-curricular handbook, but there's very little in the middle school handbook, and some of those are the same exact
Well,
language or
right, and I think some of the policies for the school-sponsored sports.
And the concussion ball, I mean, it's very elaborate in the high school one, but it's very silent, and it's just part of the student handbook in the middle school.
Okay, I will bring it back to the team.
Okay.
And if it's all right with you, I just have a small request from the building leaders. If we could possibly look at the handbook before the program of studies in
Yep.
high school, we just have a,
I was just going to suggest that actually, so
That
she's
would be
reading,
helpful. Thank you.
reading the mind. All right, so we're going to talk about the high school handbook first. Student and parent handbook. Yes? Is that what we want? Yes, okay. All right, so there's a list of the changes. Are there questions that people have about the high school handbook? I will say, high school has been super responsive in making innumerable grammatical changes. I appreciate all of their help with that and in responding to lots of questions that EC had already. So thank you all for doing that. Does anyone else have any additional queries about the high school handbook?
I think the only question that I had is, I mean, I have no idea, so I'm just asking the question, where the council is the one that decided the number of late unexcused absences. Is that what usually happens, that the council gets to decide those things?
I cannot answer that question, but they can.
Hi, Wendy. Colin Tyndall. We put it out to the kids, but they didn't have final say, but they certainly gave us some interesting numbers to work with, and then we
10
settled.
was their number?
Yeah, it was a little further out than we thought. We pulled it back a little bit, but then we brought it back to them after we had settled on our number, and that was amenable to them. So it felt reasonable from their perspective.
So it's a collaborative
It was
process.
it was 5 for the latenesses piece.
And I would just add that they're always collaborative in looking at the handbooks. We've tried to introduce that years ago to have them have input in a meaningful way into student life, and this is a reflection of that.
And we don't have policy anywhere that dictates any of that stuff?
No.
Perfect.
No. Good. Any other questions for the high school about the handbook? Okay, I need a motion then to approve the handbook, the high school handbook.
I'll make a motion to approve the Lebanon High School handbook for the 2024-2025 school year.
Okay, can I get a second? Oh, I'm going to second by Kevin, actually, because he raised his hand. Second by Kevin, motion by MJ. All right, any additional discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the LHS parent and student handbook for 24-25? Kevin, you're approving or no? Okay, 8-0, excellent. Okay, and then the program of studies. So, you have a detailed memo about the changes that were made to the program of studies, the addition of several courses, the explanation, changes of further courses. Are there any questions?
I think
MJ.
So, I appreciate the very detailed memo. And I have a question on the new course, the 602 AP African American Studies. It says it's 1 credit, but it's only a semester length. So I'm wondering how we got to 1 credit, because it didn't say it was a combination credit or course.
Hi, sorry about that. It is a 1 credit course. We were originally going to do it the same way that we do Principles of Computer Science, where you can take the first semester and then continue on for the full year for the AP credit. But it's a relatively new course nationally, as I'm sure you know, and after looking at the more recent curriculum that's become available, it's clear that it needs to be AP all year long. So it should read that it's a full year course for 1 credit, and I'll make those changes.
Okay. And then I have one more question on the notes that you added for the current issues in economics. It says, if students do not pass as 9th graders, the naturalization exam will be reassessed in subsequent years until a passing grade is achieved. But it doesn't say how the student goes about getting reassessed, and I'm wondering, and when I had inquired about that last year, there was not a policy in place of how they were going to be reassessed.
Yeah, we actually have added it as a field in ALMA. So it travels with the student throughout high school, and each social studies teacher along the way keeps track of it, as do the school counselors. So we make sure to zoom in and find the kids that really need it because they haven't yet succeeded on the test.
And didn't you say, Bonnie, that if they got to a certain point and they hadn't passed, that there would be remediation in academic block to get them to the point where they
Correct.
would pass at a certain time, either 10th grade or 11th grade or whenever that was decided?
So is
before
it
12th
still
grade.
gonna be initiated by the student to go say, hey, can you give me this exam? Or is there gonna be like, oh, everybody today during academic block needs to come take your naturalization test?
You know, it happens normally all through the conversations happen because of, you know, immigration issues being a regular part of social studies classes just in general. But the counselors are the ones who really monitor student graduation requirements, and they will certainly follow their students through to make sure, they meet with them annually at least, to make sure they're on track for graduation. And since that's a requirement, we need to make sure we track that.
Okay. Okay. Wendy?
So the question, I clicked on, as I was reviewing it, I clicked on a little link that took me to the list of courses that we've approved that are not currently in the current publication. So
It was just getting too long.
So I guess the question though is like, if we keep adding classes and we're not offering all of them, like how do we decide what's being offered this year? Why do we keep adding classes if there are classes that were not, like, I'm curious about all of that.
Yeah, the answer I'm gonna give you is that it's in response to student need and interest. But as you might remember, we originally had one technology class that was called Freshman Foundations. Do you remember back then?
Right.
Yep. And now we've expanded that to include drone piloting and all other, you know, lots of computer science courses and all kinds of things like that. And as our students, you know, they're digital natives now, of course, and the Freshman Foundations becomes less and less of a need, and yet you see students really specializing. So where we had no computer science courses, we're now up to 3, and those students are finding their niche. And so we want to give them what they hope to pursue in their post-secondary education. So, you know, like some of our art courses will come back. You know, digital media studies is still there, but it's dwindling in terms of how many kids actually take that course as they specialize more into other areas of technology, for example. Same with music. There's a variety of music courses that it comes and goes. African drumming was very successful for a while, and then it's kind of phased out, and we'll phase it back in when students express an interest in it.
That's okay.
Oh,
It's
you
not
were
covered.
there.
I guess the only thing I would add is that we've always understood the program of studies to be a catalog of approved courses. And we understand the dilemma, and so we rely on, for instance, the Allied Arts Department to have those conversations, and they solicit feedback through, you know, informal surveying of the kids, and that's how many of our courses have developed. So I think it's a fair question to ask. I think we've gone through years where we've made all the courses available, and it becomes, you know, a collection of a handful of students interested in a variety of different classes, and then how do we sift through that in order to put together, you know, a schedule? And so we're asking department members to use discretion, to have a process, however informal it may be, to determine what courses end up on their registration sheets.
So in the courses that end up on the registration sheet, are they even all of the ones that are currently in this program of studies?
There are not any courses on that registration sheet that don't appear in the program of studies.
But
that's not what you're asking, though.
No, I'm asking the other way around. So like if I
tonight.
have an incoming student, or I have a student who's going from 9th to 10th grade, and I grab the program of studies, my assumption would be any of the descriptions that I see in there would be available classes, but that's not what you're saying.
No, there are 4 different course registration sheets that list the options for students. So you won't see on the rising 9th graders course selection sheet all of the courses that are in the program of studies, because they can't take all of them because some are only eligible for 11th and 12th graders. But I think that all of them that are in the program of studies right now will run if there's student interest. Now, if we only have 3 people sign up for AP African American Studies, we won't run that course. So we'll channel them into other courses. So if they're in the program of studies, they're on the registration sheets, but that doesn't necessarily mean they'll run.
Okay, and the ones that are sort of banked in that other place, those definitely are not necessarily on the registration.
They're not.
Okay. Okay.
So for all those parents listening tonight, I think a good place to start would be to look at your child's registration sheet when it becomes available in February, determine what courses are available in that respective sheet, and then go to the catalog, the program of studies, to learn more about those.
Okay.
I have a question about that. Are those sheets available anywhere else besides in the hand of my 10th grader at a certain point, or because, and that not just because of backpacks, but also because it would be interesting and I think valuable to have those sheets available online at all times, because if you are a child or a parent who is planning from starting 8th grade, it is interesting to see the sheet for 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, all the way through, instead
The
of
sheets
one
do
sheet at a
change
time.
depending on
Right,
the
but-
course selection process. But I would agree. At least you could refer back to what they were the year before.
And so you get a sense of what
So we
you're
just
looking
approved the
forward
new
to.
sheets today in
Okay.
coordinators meeting. So
Sure. So if those could be available
I
online at
think
some
when we
point,
communicate
that'd be-
separately from the weekly, I think things get lost
Yeah.
in the weekly at times. And we always send an email home having to do with the registration and scheduling process. So we'll make those sheets available electronically. That's a good idea if we
And
haven't
the
already.
other sheet that would be interesting is, like, is there a sheet that the counselors use to track, like,
Graduation credits?
yes,
Yes.
requirements?
Yep.
Like, is there a way for parents to just have a sense of what that looks like?
Of a baseline 20 credit graduation expectation. It's so different for every kid, but
Or just like how, yeah,
I think is it an ALMA too, I think it fills into that, how many English credits they've taken, how many.
I guess it's more just like a planning, like if you're trying to, because this is what I find fun, is to like map out some sense of how you get through high school.
well,
and
Wendy, I
that
hope
should-
you attended the 10th grade parent meeting, which we make available
The
to
ninth
all.
grade?
No, to 10th grade parents. And I think after that 9th grade year, parent, student, and counselor have a better idea of the path forward and what post-secondary plans may look like. So that's been in place for 9 years now, and I assume I hope you took advantage of that. It's quite an opportunity.
Well, I
in all
created my
seriousness.
own Excel sheet for my oldest child when he was in 8th grade.
Right.
So I think, so all of this,
Look at page 12 in the program of studies, see the year by year, and it's a page guideline.
I think, though, that the more detailed one that you're talking about, the registration sheets, even if they do, with the caveat that they do change.
Correct.
I think that would be helpful.
I agree.
Because I do feel like even now, there are some conversations that, for instance, a parent can have with a counselor where in the gist of the conversation is, well, have your child come and see me. Well, that's great, but we also want to have conversations before that, and there's no way to have that conversation because we don't know what's available. So I think having that would be helpful. Any additional comments for the program of studies for the high school? Okay, can I get a motion on the program of studies for the high school?
I'll make a motion to approve the Lebanon High School Program of Studies for the 2024-2025 school year.
Okay, motion by MJ, second by Mary. Assuming there's no additional discussion, all those in favor? Okay, 8-0. All right, thank you. Thank you all for answering our questions. Appreciate it.
And I can't wait for Sawyer to get to choose some of these classes.
Okay.
I think he'll be,
Okay.
I think he'll enjoy
Okay.
the auto one.
Don't leave. Sorry. We have the athletic and co-curricular handbook as well. I forgot. That was me. So we're moving on to the high school athletic and co-curricular handbook. We've already made comments about making additions to the middle school handbook based on what is relevant from the high school handbook. But does anyone have questions on the athletic handbook? MJ has lots of tabs.
I tabbed the handbook.
I don't have the handbook.
So my biggest comment is the table of contents is off. A lot of the page reference numbers for are just, the formatting's wrong, so it needs
Okay.
to be updated.
Okay.
I was just curious why band was added as a co-curricular, but chorus was not. What's the difference between a band and a chorus?
Band, we have pep band, we have jazz band. Those are co-curricular pursuits. I'm trying to, we do have a cappella groups with our chorus. I'll take a look at that, MJ.
Well,
We
it was
do have-
highlighted specifically band, but then later on it does say jazz band and pep band, so to
So
me
there-
that looked like general band got added.
Correct,
back.
there's no reason for band to be in the athletic and co-curricular handbook.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there was one on page 6 when it talks about, it said about the academic requirements. It says NHIA relative to the passing of academic sources, and I think it should say courses instead of and then under the next page on weekly eligibility, it talks about the student support team, but the acronym is SIST, so I was wondering if that was a typo.
No, SIST is what we call it, and if you, so it's one of those acronyms that has existed forever, and now where's Colin? That's his committee. We never call it that. We always call it SIST, and so we will clean that up. And I'd hate to lose that acronym, so we need to come up with actual language that supports it.
Because SIST is great.
Yeah. I'm on a SIST.
Well, it's SIST, you know, we wouldn't
Wrong
do it any other way.
And then on the, I think on the next page, it says that schedules and practices are posted on the school webpage. I've actually never seen a practice posted on the school webpage, so is that?
So it's been a while since I, you know, so our athletic scheduling page is kind of a separate function from our actual webpage. And I guess I'd be disappointed in, you know, again, we're so connected to the school, having my children go through, I never used the, for instance, the Power School parent portal ever to look at my, I don't always have a sense of how people navigate these platforms. If the schedule isn't available for the day, it should be.
Well, on LebanonRaiders.org, it's the game schedule is
schedule for
available,
sure.
but the practice
There's
schedule
no-
is.
You have to go under the sport, and I think,
I can't
It's
imagine
not
that
for
it's not, but if
softball.
it's not, it should be, MJ. So we'll make sure that it is.
Okay,
It
just
may
want to
be
make,
for some sports and not others, because I know
Right.
basketball and lacrosse are there.
It's an exhausting effort between facilities and Mike to change that on a daily basis with all of the things that occur. And so I know it's scheduled on their scheduling platform that facilities facilitates, so I know it's available.
well, that's why it
So-
seems like an undue burden to have to post a practice, I mean, that should
Well,
be between the
you'd be
coach and the students, but.
I don't think it's a bad thing to have a practice plan, so I don't want to make a commitment to something that's unreasonable. Let me talk to Mike about that, and I will let the board know.
Okay, and then my final thing is the mouth guard policy. It says, in accordance with NHIA bylaws, all athletes participating in the following sports must wear color mouth guards: soccer, football, field hockey, basketball, ice hockey, and lacrosse. But actually, NHIA says that they're encouraged but not
is
required
correct.
for basketball and soccer, but they do say they're required for wrestling if you have braces. So I think that the mouth guard
Well,
section needs to be updated.
Everything you've said is true, so we'll make those changes. Yeah.
Okay. That's it?
So what's interesting is that, I don't know if, so I don't have a laser-like memory like some, so you mentioned 3 or 4 things, in all honesty, that if we could, we'll have the minutes, I guess, to take a look at that.
Or
So
you can-
that's-
you can
and you
my
can always
tablet.
watch the replay of the video.
Yeah, we can do that.
I
So
will give you
just
a
don't-
take-home copy if you would like.
So I'll rely on you, so I'll rely on the minutes, and then we'll hopefully, or MJ, I'll reach out to you if I don't get it. So we want to make sure we follow up.
Okay. Any additional comments on the athletic and co-curricular part? No? Okay. All right, motion to approve the athletic and co-curricular handbook. All right, Steve makes a motion to approve the athletic and co-curricular handbook for 24-25. Can I get a second? Seconded by MJ for a change. All right, all those in favor of approving the handbook with the corrections? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, give it to them. That's going to be easier. All right. Okay. We are at, we're just going to push through because we have two more things. So we're going to do the first reading of policy DIR, ECAF, and KCD, correct?
Yes, I was just looking, see if I could find the note about DIR.
DIR is, it looks different format. It looks like this.
Right here, if you want to look at my.
Yeah, no, I'm wondering what our reasoning, if it just,
Oh, okay.
we didn't need it. Anyway, so I'll make a motion to withdraw policy, or with withdrawals, do we need to do a second reading, or we can just do it?
You can do it the first.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to withdraw policy DIR, fiscal accounting and reporting regulations.
Okay, motion by Wendy. Can I get a second? Oh, second by Mary. Okay.
And I'm sure that the reason for doing so was that it can just be part of a procedural manual and not, it doesn't have to be in a policy.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's redundant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, any additional questions about that? No? All right, all those in favor of withdrawing policy DIR, raise your hands. All right, any opposed? No, okay, so 7-0. Jessica stepped out. All right, next motion.
I'll make a motion to move the policies listed on our agenda under 11E and F for a second reading.
Okay.
Did you say remove or move
Move.
them?
Move.
Okay, I think you
Move
said
to a sec-
remove them.
No, move to a second reading. All right, we've got a motion to move ECAF and KCD to a second reading. Can I get a second on that? Okay, seconded by Mary, moved by Wendy. Any additional questions on these? Comments? No, there's some grammatical stuff, but I'll just send those along. There we go. Okay. All right, all those in favor of moving those two policies to second reading? Okay, any opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, and one abstention. Okay. Excellent. All right, so we are on to committee updates. Finance Facilities met Thursday, January 18th.
Yes, we did. We learned that the construction at the high school in Hanover Street is going well. It's still on track, still within the budget, and also that being within budget and part of the construction, they learned that it would be beneficial to move one of the irrigation lines that's at the school, and there was a couple different options, and we were able to get the best choice option for our construction spend, which hopefully will mitigate ever having to move this line again, which is very positive news. And that was a sprinkler water line. And then we reviewed policy DJE, DJER, made some comments and Wendy to take back to policy, along with DBJ. And then we also, as a group, reviewed our portion of the policy BDE and BDER, which was our responsibilities as a committee. Had some discussion there, which I also think that Wendy, as part of policy, is going to bring to the broader board about how we kind of interact when certain issues kind of touch on several different committee meetings. And then we changed our next meeting to be on February 8th at 4:15.
Jessica, do you want to speak to the strategic?
Would you like me to do that now, or when you do the policy update, policy committee?
I think if you want to just sort of briefly.
Sure. So we had, I think what was a very productive and engaging conversation about, we were reviewing the committee responsibilities, and which was a very helpful conversation. And I think the concern that was raised by me was that there are, so what came up was that in BDER, the Finance and Facilities Committee is listed as being responsible for overseeing the development of the budget. That was sort of where this originated from, and we had a discussion about the fact that the Finance and Facilities Committee doesn't actually oversee the development of the budget, and that the concern that the development of the budget is essentially a strategic process, and the board doesn't actually have a very clear way of handling topics that touch at the core of each of our committee work. So topics that are both related to education, that are also related to policy, that are also related to facilities needs, that are also related to personnel. So those would be topics that I think we could all probably agree are actually of extreme importance when they touch all of those things. And we don't have a clear way of handling them, while of course it would always be appropriate for the entire board to take up matters like that in general board meetings. The fact is that we have lots of other matters that we need to attend to in board meetings. And so this is the kind of thing that might get kicked to committee work. We don't really have a clear way of handling that. So that was our discussion. Some of the examples of this kind of thing that we discussed were things like the question of our elementary school programs and the possible future of elementary school programs. We also discussed the early childhood education programs and how we handle those. I think also the issue of rising district costs, issues that are definitely the purview of the full board, but also would require sustained and very deep study and conversation, don't really have a clear place to go. In the description of the Finance and Facilities Committee, I sort of felt like in some ways that's kind of the Finance and Facilities, to me those strategic issues would kind of come under Finance and Facilities, but at the same time that's not really appropriate. So I think we did not come to a conclusion. We discussed the idea of should there be a strategy committee, should there not, how should we handle that? I think we agreed to think about it, raise it to the full board at this meeting, discuss it again at our upcoming Finance and Facilities meeting. So I guess it would be lovely to hear if anyone had any thoughts now. I think that in the absence or even in the presence of that, it feels appropriate for the Finance and Facilities Committee to continue discussing it and perhaps bring forward some ideas in the future, but it would be lovely to have some input from the board now.
I think too, Jessica, I wonder if it would be helpful to share the link in the email that you sent to me, just so, because that gave me a really clear sense of how you're thinking about this and a process to be able to do some of this.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Sure.
It doesn't mean we have to follow that, right? But
Yeah.
like just to sort of like start to shape some of the conversation.
Well, I'm mildly reluctant to do that until there's an expression of interest from the board in that approach. So I think that I shared with Wendy and I have had a conversation about strategy work and strategic planning on boards, and there are a lot of processes for doing that. I would be this is something I have done professionally. I would be very happy to share some thoughts with the board about that, but I don't really want to.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think I'm gonna make you not have to do that right now. I think that as you're saying this, I mean, I think part of it is obviously strategic plan in general is one of these areas, one of these projects, and that heretofore, I think our strategic planning process has been clunky, maybe problematic, hasn't worked as well as it could, and that this is the kind of thing that you're talking about because it touches so many different areas. It's really hard to parcel it off to one particular committee, and it's difficult to have a meaningful discussion as a whole board about those kinds of things given all of our other constraints. I think that's totally true. I think that's so I would be interested in seeing different models for how we might do that, how that might be structured, because my only fear, and it's not even a really big fear, but my only fear, just hearing what you're saying, is I don't want us to accidentally back ourselves into well, we can't talk about that here because that's really a strategic thing that's a bigger project, right? So that we do still want to, there are things that we still are going to be doing, and sometimes they do cross maybe two paths, not all four of our committees, but just maybe two. So, but I don't think we would do that. I just want to keep that as a caveat in our minds. So yes, I think we can talk about it. It also seems like something that we might want to talk about as part of the moving towards revising our strategic plan. It also sounds like something that we might want to talk about as part of our retreat, as a more targeted discussion of this after we've thought about it in our committees, and then come to a retreat. Again, I don't know that that's the correct way either. I'm just trying to, I do think it is worthwhile for us to talk about and for us to come up with some ideas and make some moves.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that I'll throw out there, this is related to the stuff that I had sent Wendy, there isn't a right way to do this, but I think the only wrong way to do it is to not talk about it as a board. I think that boards all come up with different definitions of what strategy is to them, of what strategic planning means to them. That's actually pretty appropriate given different contexts, but the only incorrect thing to do is to just not discuss it because it's too complicated, and so and because we don't feel like we have time. And so
I agree. I think I personally don't feel that is, I think that is the incorrect thing to do as well. Absolutely. I think that.
Yeah, so it would be great to hear what other folks' sort of feeling about this is, so that we can come back with the most so we can come back with something valuable rather than not.
Just before other people say, I will say this is, as the other committees start to talk about BDE and BDER, it might also be good to have this rolled into the other committee discussions about that particular policy and their role, because I think some of this applies, as you say, to all of the different areas, so that each committee can have their discussion about this. That might be a way forward.
Yeah, we raised, even in just one meeting with finance and facilities, we raised the question of like, well, should a representative from every committee be on a strategy committee, or should those strategy meetings, how do we stop it from just everybody saying, well, that has to be taken care of in strategy and we can't do anything about it here? So we did have a lot of discussion about what and whether a standing committee is actually the right way to handle something like this or not. So I think there's a lot of important issues there, and so it would be great to hear from.
And I think part of the question now potentially is like, do we, I think that the two most important first questions to answer, not tonight, but are, how do we define, what are we using as the definition for strategy, and what do we feel like our role is in that process, and then I think what maybe Jessica's looking for, like, do we feel like this is important? Do we feel like this is something that's missing? Do we want to continue to have conversations on how we actually create that?
Perhaps, I think it might be easier to hear what are folks' concerns, because I don't actually feel like there's any real question about whether this sort of question is important. It is. We all know that we have these kinds of things that need to be surfaced one way or the other. I don't care whether we do what words we use around it. I think everyone's aware that that's a thing. So I guess I'm less concerned about that and would be more interested in hearing what folks are worried about when we bring up this topic. Like, what are the anxieties that board members have about talking about it this way or whatever, so that we can come up with some suggestion that will address those, so Lil, what you just raised, like, I think if others have
and maybe people need to think about it, so that's why I was suggesting that we move it to the committee, because we all have to talk about the same thing in our next meetings, which are coming right up, so that people can have time to think, what are their thoughts about this as they've just now thought about it. But I don't want to speak for you all. What do you want to, how do you want to proceed? Kevin, you were.
Plus, I think having like a written framework to read, and think about would be helpful for me. So I don't think I have a full concept of what your suggestion.
Mary, you were going to say something?
No, I'd like to do it in the next committee, but I also would like to know, when you're talking about strategies, are you talking about the board strategies, or are you talking about the district strategies?
What a great question.
And this is another question that we will talk about in a little bit, not today, but when we talk about our goals again, it's the same question. Are they board goals? Are they district goals?
I mean, I think it's possible to answer that at least in partial, which is that none of those kinds of documents or thought processes should ever be developed in isolation. You should never have board goals which are unrelated to district goals. You should never have district goals which are completely divorced from. So I think that like
Versus superintendent
right,
and school
right.
goals
Those
should all be-
they should always be sort of created as related
That's
things.
what I was hoping you'd say.
Yeah, so but I think that it's very hard to do that without there being some kind of a framework and a process for how the different groups work together, and yeah.
And sometimes you have to start with something, and then we
Yes.
modify all of the things until we are synergistically aligned, yes?
Yeah, no doubt, this is an extraordinarily important process, I think, to start on and work towards, to make the board more functional, more efficient. The problem you end up running into is our bi-weekly meetings are so full of
Yeah.
the day-to-day business that it makes that kind of a process and a revamp all the more perfect topic for a board retreat.
Yeah.
Focused on almost a non-business meeting and focused on how do we develop those critical concepts.
I think it'd be really, outlined in that strategic plan for the district, right? That is gonna be that framework, and it's gonna outline how each committee should run, how we're reporting, what's that framework and those guidelines. And I think not all of us were part of the original strategic planning piece, so I don't have how that came about. But we do know, and we had talked about, that is something that we need to kind of, I
Yeah.
think, really outline and flesh out of like, what are those big broad strokes that we need to be working towards.
I think the other issue that, because we did talk about the idea of like whether this is just, should this be the board, the retreat work or something like that. And I think the issue that is one thing that I would call out for folks is that I don't think we can just sort of say like, okay, well, strategy is the kind of thing that should be done at the board retreat, because the problem with that, I think that that's very feasible when you have the kind of organization where everybody's long-standing tenure, you work together all the time, you serve together for long periods, and then you come together, once a year and you have a real, weekend together or something. That's one thing. Whereas on a board like this, because a third of the board potentially turns over every year, we don't actually all work together all that much, et cetera. I think it's the kind of thing where it does make sense to consider a process which is not simply let's chunk it out to a thing that we do once a
So
year
that's
as
actually
board.
not, that's not what I understood he was saying.
No,
Yeah,
no,
that's not what he was saying.
What I was saying is we should use the next retreat to develop the process.
Yes.
Sure.
We don't do I'm not saying you do the strategy thing only at the retreat. I think you develop the process
Sure.
and the structure around it at the next retreat.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were saying.
Because developing that process is an entire meeting in of itself,
Mm-hmm, sure.
or more.
And if we've already met together as committees and talked about it, we'll have more things to go forward with, more ideas and more questions which we can answer between now and then, and have this sort of framework. I think Kevin is right, that some of us, me in particular, I need to see things written down to be able to actually respond to things. So I think that I agree. I don't think it's something that we isolate to once
That's
a
fine.
year,
I think I was more trying to, that was something had come up in the finance and facilities meeting that I wanted to make sure we sort of called out so that that was
Yeah.
part of the conversation as we go forward. Is it appropriate to, in terms of having stuff to look at, how should we, there is some materials, there are some frameworks, how can we share that stuff so that people have things to think about? I know we can't send an email to everyone.
I think you can send it to Lil, and then
You
she
send it to
can-
me and then I can send it to
Okay.
the board. And if it's something that we're going to talk about publicly, then it goes into the package.
Sure,
And if-
okay.
Yeah.
We just
Okay.
can't respond back and forth
Yeah,
in those
can't have
emails and
discussions
have
on
like a
it.
discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where we
alright.
make any decisions.
So so if we have some stuff to send along, we can send that to you. Great.
Okay, is that, okay, good, great. Did you want-
Sure, I just wanted one update from Finance and Facility. We hired a director of facilities that will begin in the end of March. So I'm going to toss this over to Tim just to talk a little bit about, but we're excited to onboard him, so.
Yeah, so we have cast the net far and wide, and the candidate that we selected, and he had went through 3 different interviews, 2 on Zoom and 1 in person. His name is, well, his first name is John. I figured his last. Kerber.
Do we have to approve?
His name will, no, you don't, but we'll probably bring, the board likes to see his
Yes.
name. So we'll bring it to the board in the next couple of meetings, but he won't be starting until the end of March, so we got some time. He's coming to us from the Philadelphia area, so he signed an offer letter. He's looking for a place to live, so I'm announcing it. You probably can tell that I'm I've been burned a couple times, so it's like, once he finds a place to live, it doesn't say, there's no place to live up there. So hopefully, but we agreed that he'll come up here the last week in March, start that week. He has a fiance, and she's a kindergarten teacher, so she's eager to apply for a kindergarten teaching position we'll have posted. Yeah, so they have family in New York and in Massachusetts, so the reason why he looked just on School Spring, and actually, I think Indeed or something. Anyway, they were looking for a place that's out of the city and is relatively close to family. So we think he's going to work well. He's got some experience. He's not, he doesn't have tons of experience. He's a younger guy, somewhere around 30-ish. Didn't ask his age, but based on resume. So he seemed like a really good fit. I think everybody loved him. I think I was on there was another hiring interview that Tia was on after I talked to him. And I think the feedback was really good. So we're excited. So
We will,
pray that he finds a place to live.
once he's up in the Upper Valley, we'll bring him to the board and introduce him to everyone.
And any update on the athletic director?
I believe there were interviews last week, and they're checking references to make an offer.
Okay, thank you. Policy Committee, next meeting is Thursday, January 25th at 8:50.
Nope, it's Monday,
Sorry.
29th,
Let me just fix that then.
because
Just
we're
like
not-
the IC.
Right?
Monday, the 29th. Okay, at 8:15, yes?
Yes.
Okay. EC, the next meeting is Monday, February 5th at 4 PM. P&N is to be determined.
So P&N, how do we have a meeting? Because we do, to the extent that we need to review BDER and
Right,
stuff.
so your chair can call a meeting at any point.
Who's our chair?
That's Steve's.
Can we have a meeting at some point?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, and you do need to have one before March 12th anyway, so, to do all this stuff before the election, so yes, thanks. Thank you, Jessica. So Student Wellness Advisory Committee, the next meeting is May 8th at 3:30, at the SAU Office. JCTC, next meeting is, Tuesday, March 19th, at 10 a.m. at HACTC. The Area Committee, our next meeting is Tuesday, February 27th at 6 p.m. at Plainfield Elementary. The School District City Task Force, the next meeting is this Thursday, tomorrow, January 25th at 6 p.m. at City Hall. Future agenda items, the very last thing you have in your packet is the board annual self-evaluation process. This should look very similar to the superintendent evaluation process we looked at our next meeting. The only reason I'm giving this to you is, again, this was something that was approved years ago. This is the sort of new revisions to it, which is just changing the dates a tiny, tiny bit. And so if you look, I will be, at some point very soon, be sending you a link. You've probably gotten some other Super Eval links, disregard them. There will be a new link from Super Eval coming to say you need to log in and do your board self-evaluation, and there'll be a deadline by which it's due. And after that point, we'll collect those individual evaluations from Super Eval. Imogen MJ and I will synthesize the data and prepare a summative evaluation by the last meeting in February, where we explain everything everyone says, summarize it, and then we'll go on to the rest of the process. So this is just to get you knowing that this is coming, and to look for information from Super Eval to do it, and then just a big encouragement to actually do it. It is going to be kind of a tight turnaround time because we want to get all this done in February. It does not require huge amounts of typing. It just requires you to actually thoughtfully think about each of the sections and the domains. And so I'll just be sending you some annoying emails to remind you to do that. Yes?
Is the date there where it says board completes annual self-evaluation?
No, that's going to be not February 3rd. Sorry, it's going to be the middle of February, mid-February.
So the one we got then, it says it's due by the 27th of January is not
No,
correct.
that's not
Okay,
correct.
don't use that one.
Don't use that one. I'm not using that.
And there is at least one question or two that is related to the New York stuff. So for new board members,
Oh, yeah.
if it doesn't make sense, just put like a question mark in your comments and move on.
Because it has nothing to do with this, but we can't take it out. So, okay. Are there any additional future agenda items or board member recommendations or questions?
We need
besides
to
one?
talk about calendar.
Yes, we do. So if you look at the calendar, we are, our board calendar, sorry, let me just get to the. Okay. We have our next, our deliberative session is on February 3rd, and the next board meeting after that is on February 14th. Then we'll have a meeting on February 28th. We need to talk about March, right? March is the one that we. Elections, we have elections are March 12th, and
So we can't hold,
we can't.
I mean, we
hold our-
can, but no new, the outgoing board members, because somebody will have officially been elected, they can't sit on the board. And the new board members will still be in a waiting period.
Right. So, we need to move that meeting to a different time. So what we've done in the past is have that meeting on like a Monday on the 18th, because it's an organizational meeting more than anything else. We elect a chair and a vice chair and a secretary, and we welcome the new board members, and they get all of their materials. So we could do that on the Monday the 18th or the 19th, it doesn't really matter, and then still keep our 27th board meeting as scheduled. What is the will of the people with regard to that?
Forget the certify or do the pledge.
Yeah, well, the swearing in, that's not the
Swearing
pledge.
in, yeah.
Well, don't worry. The new people get sworn in.
We're supposed to.
So we could do it on the 20th though, too.
We could do it on the 20th, as long as people were recognizing then we're gonna have another meeting on the 27th.
Right.
So,
I won't be here the 18th or the 20th, so.
oh,
Anyway.
that's fine.
11,
Yeah.
19.
You will be here on the night, or you gone the 18th through the 20th, yes. Anybody else have any other? So
The
if
dog
we did
has agility on Mondays, but she can skip it for a week.
No, we can do it on the 20th. I mean, Wednesdays are a time people have, so we can do it on the 20th, and then our organizational meeting on the 20th, and we'll do our regular scheduled meeting on the 27th. And then, yes?
I thought Kevin just said he wasn't here on the 20th.
Yeah, but
he doesn't. I mean, the only thing he has, he can.
I barely count.
No.
That's not
I'm saying
true.
You don't have to be sworn in, but you do have to vote for chair, vice chair, and whatever. So, do you have any?
He's fine.
Do you have any Zoom
Oh, yeah,
ability?
yeah, that'll be possible.
Okay, okay, and then we'll just set that up. All right, and then we need to go into April
So we're doing the
because,
We're doing the 20th?
yes,
So are we still meeting, so does that mean we're canceling the 13th?
yes.
Canceling the 13th, doing the 20th and the 27th? Okay.
Yes. And then in April, we have a meeting scheduled during spring break, which we will not do. So we need to decide if, Wendy, I think we just have to decide if we want to move that to the 17th, or if we want to wait. If we we don't have our meeting in the first part of April, we go an entire month without having a meeting, because we go from the end of March to the end of April. We've done this in the past. We can schedule a meeting if something comes up on the 17th, but it
I mean, the other
depends.
thing, the other option potentially would be, I mean, I know it's posted the 2nd and the 4th, but if we did the 20th and then did the 3rd and the 17th, or the 3rd and the 24th.
That's true.
Instead of the 27th, yes, we could do that.
When is April vacation?
April vacation is the second week, it starts on April 8th. Because there's almost five
Yep.
full weeks of April, so.
Why don't you just do the 3rd and the 17th?
3rd and the
So it's
17th.
3.
Okay, so one proposal is that we meet on March 20th. We do not meet on March 27th. We meet on April 3rd, and then we meet on April 17th.
Or the 20, we can go back to the 24th.
Or the 24th, whichever.
Yep.
What are people's thoughts?
I like the 3rd and the 17th.
The 3rd and the 17th?
With one meeting in March.
Yeah, we sort of,
Which would just
unless we
be-
wanted to,
Well, we have the organizational meeting. on
The organizational and one, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We can always add one in, but.
right.
Okay, so we're saying that we want to do.
Oh, wait a minute, the only meeting in March then, wouldn't that just be the organizational?
yeah, but that's
meeting?
part of the problem is just because of the voting stuff and the way it messes up the calendar.
So is it more important
Well, that's why I think
to
it's
have-
better to keep the 27th in March, so then you can do some business in March.
Okay.
And then on April, do the 3rd and the 17th. Because the 20th never takes very long.
Yeah, it's very short. Okay, so we're suggesting that we meet on March 20th for the organizational meeting, March 27th, regularly scheduled board meeting, April 3rd.
Yeah, but
new-
then we've got 3, yeah, I don't think.
What? 3 in a row? Yeah.
Yeah, 20th, 27th, and 3rd is not, that does not seem like a great, if that's what's being proposed.
I can't hear you.
If we're proposing the 20th, the 27th, and the 3rd, 3 weeks in a row, of that
Right,
seems.
so then we go back to where we're only gonna have one meeting, right? So either we have meetings in a row, or we only have one meeting either in April or in March.
Right, okay, so then have a meeting on March 27th. I'd say keep the meeting on March 27th, so you can actually have a full meeting that month. And then in April, then just do the one meeting and do it
17th?
on the 17th. Is that the meeting day? No, that, yeah, just move the 8th to the 17th. Or do the 20, I mean, if you wanna
Don't
go
we
a
have
month
to do the
between, then do the 24th, which is already scheduled in April. So at least you have 2 full meetings in each, one full meeting in each month.
Right. I'm so confused. All right. So, we are saying now, in order for us to have one full meeting in each month, we are meeting for an organizational meeting on the 20th. We are meeting for a full board meeting on the 27th of March.
So can I
Hold
just,
on, wait, let me just finish my thought. And then we are meeting on the 17th of April for a full board meeting.
And skip the 24th.
And skip the 24th? That's what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I'd say either do or skip the 24th or the 7th, like, I'm agreeable to the 17th or the 24th, I think, just to have one full meeting in April. If you don't want to go a month between meetings, then probably the 17th is better in April, but.
Sorry, what were we gonna say, Wendy?
so I think it takes some time to get, I mean, if our new board members are going to join us for the first time on the 20th, there's decisions around committees, there's decisions around school assignments, there's orientation for them. There's plenty to do with new board members. We know we're gonna have at least 2, probably, I'm assuming. You're done, right? I think. And Lisa's not intending, right, so we know that we have 2. So, I mean, I think there's plenty to do with new board members so I personally am not feeling like having a full, if there are any urgent, emergent kinds of things, I think we can add them briefly to our agenda on the 20th. It's been done before, and I think if we just sort of in April do the 3rd and then go to the 24th and then get back on our.
Okay.
But
Any other suggestions? I can do anything. Thank you for your flexibility. I appreciate that. Do you have any?
I mean, I would like if we're gonna do the 27th of March, I think the 17th of April,
Okay.
just in terms of policy, I'm thinking
Okay.
readings, we wanna make sure there's some sort of flow.
All right, so we're, right, so we're going to do the 20th and the 27th.
Yep,
And then the 17th
of April.
And we'll update this on the calendar so that you can actually find it. Okay, sorry, that was so much longer than it needs to be. Apologies. Okay, I already said the next board meeting is on February 14th, fun, at 6:30 p.m. The deliberative session is on the 3rd, the snow date is the 5th. This filing period has changed from what we've been publishing before. The filing period for municipal office, including school board positions, started today, January 24th, and goes through February 2nd. And the municipal elections are on Tuesday, March 12th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Please vote. Anything else? No? Can I get a motion? We need a motion to adjourn first.
Do you need to assign people to read?
We already
We did.
that.
Yep.
Yeah. You have to read you have to read 1 through 4.
You didn't volunteer.
Article,
Yes, you're right.
Article 5. Article 5 you
Can I
have.
get a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn by Steve, seconded by Mary. All those in favor? Thank you. Oh, Wendy, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.